Hello, my name is Robert. After being alive for over 4 decades, I learned that the person who vows to stand by you through better or worse will sometimes abandon you the moment worse actually arrives, and then be shocked when consequences follow. Before we continue, make sure to like this video and leave a comment where you are watching from. I'd been married to Christine for 14 years when she handed me divorce papers on Christmas Day. 14 years that had been solid when I was successful, but crumbled the moment I lost my job and needed the partnership marriage is supposed to provide. We met when I was 25 and she was 24, both of us working in downtown Seattle. I was in corporate finance at a prominent investment firm, and she was in pharmaceutical sales. We'd met at an industry networking event, started dating, and built a relationship that felt stable and promising. We got married after dating for 2 years. Had a nice wedding, decent honeymoon in Mexico, came back, and started building our life together. We bought a house in the suburbs about 3 years into the marriage. Had our son a year after that. For the first decade of our marriage, I was the primary breadwinner. My finance job paid well, with annual bonuses. Christine worked and contributed to household expenses, but her income was supplemental. We lived comfortably on what I earned, used her salary for extras and savings. The financial dynamic never felt problematic. I provided the bulk of the income. Christine managed the household and contributed her earnings. We were a team with complementary roles. Our marriage wasn't perfect. No marriage is. We had arguments, mostly about my work hours. Finance demanded long days, frequent overtime, and weekend work during busy periods. Christine would complain that I was never home, that my son barely saw me, that we had no family time. My work paid for our comfortable lifestyle. The house, the cars, the vacations, our son's private school. All of it came from me working those long hours. She'd acknowledge that, but still resent the time demands. But we worked through disagreements, maintained basic respect and partnership, and had enough good to balance the challenges. Then everything changed when I lost my job unexpectedly at 39. The investment firm underwent major restructuring, eliminating entire departments. My position was cut along with about 30 others, nothing to do with performance, purely a financial reorganization. I got the news on a Tuesday morning. Was escorted out by security that afternoon with a severance package and a stunning sense of dislocation. I came home and told Christine. She was shocked but initially supportive. Said we'd get through it together. That my severance would carry us for a few months while I found something new. That her income could temporarily cover more of the bills. Her response felt reassuring that we'd weather this challenge as a team. I spent the first few weeks after the job loss updating my resume, reaching out to contacts, and applying to positions. Expected to find something quickly. I had strong credentials, solid experience, and a good network. But the job market was tighter than I'd anticipated. The positions at my previous salary level were scarce. The competition was intense. I'd get interviews, but no offers. Kept getting the same feedback. Overqualified for lower positions, too specialized for lateral moves, great candidate. But they went with someone else. 3 months passed. My severance covered expenses, but was depleting rapidly. Christine had taken over paying most bills with her salary. She was handling it, but I could feel her stress increasing. Her tone started changing. She would make comments about how long the job search was taking, ask pointed questions about why I hadn't found anything yet, and suggest positions I'd already applied for, like I wasn't trying hard enough. The supportive partnership energy from those first weeks had shifted to something more complicated and more judgmental. I felt the emasculation acutely. I'd been the provider for our entire marriage. My identity was wrapped up in being the one who ensured financial stability. Now I was dependent on Christine's income while failing repeatedly to secure new employment. The power dynamic in our marriage shifted visibly. Christine had always deferred to me on major financial decisions because I earned more. Now she'd make decisions unilaterally, pointing out that she was paying the bills, so she'd decide how money got spent. She'd make comments comparing me to other men, always implying that they were handling their responsibilities while I was failing. The respect I'd always felt from her That baseline appreciation for my role as provider eroded steadily. She started treating me like a burden rather than a partner who was temporarily struggling. Our emotional connection deteriorated in parallel. Conversations became transactional or argumentative. Physical intimacy declined to almost nothing. The warmth that had defined our relationship for over a decade just disappeared. 6 months after losing my job, I was still unemployed. Had gone through dozens of interviews without success. The severance was gone. We were living entirely on Christine's salary. She was openly resentful by this point. Would say things about how she couldn't keep doing this alone. How she'd never expected to be the sole provider. How this wasn't what she'd signed up for when she married me. I felt powerless while doing everything I could, applying constantly, networking aggressively, and willing to take pay cuts. But the results weren't coming. The frustration was eating me alive. Every rejection felt like personal failure. Every comment from Christine felt like confirmation that I was inadequate. Nearly a year after the job loss, I finally got an offer, a position with a mid-sized firm doing similar work to what I'd done before. The catch was the salary, about half what I'd been making previously. Still decent money, but nowhere near our previous income level. I accepted immediately because I couldn't afford to keep searching for something better. Needed to be employed, to contribute financially, to stop feeling completely useless. I told Christine that evening with genuine relief and hope. Explained that the salary was lower than I'd wanted, but having this job would help me find my footing so that I could potentially advance or move to something better once I was employed again. Christine's reaction was disappointment verging on disdain. She said the salary wouldn't even cover the mortgage for our big house. She asked what the point of working for so little was. She made it clear she saw this job as inadequate. The comment crushed me. I'd expected her to be relieved I'd found something. Instead, she was dismissive of my effort. But I started the new job anyway. Tried to rebuild our finances and my career from this lower baseline. The job helped somewhat. We weren't living entirely on Christine's income anymore. But combined, we were making significantly less than I'd made alone previously. We couldn't afford the lifestyle we'd maintained before. No more nice vacations. No more frequent dinners at expensive restaurants. Had to cut back on our son's extracurriculars. Discussed selling the house for something smaller. Christine hated all of it. The loss of status, the reduction in comfort, the visible step down in lifestyle. She'd mentioned how her coworkers were traveling to Europe while we were canceling our annual Hawaii trip. She started funding some luxuries herself to maintain appearances. She would take expensive trips with her friends, would buy designer clothes, and would go to spas and nice restaurants. All on her salary, all without me. Christine would justify it by saying she worked hard and deserved to enjoy life, even if I couldn't contribute to those things anymore. The separate financial lives created more distance. We were married, but functioning independently. She had her life and income, I had mine, and the two barely overlapped. Around this time, I started noticing other changes in Christine's behavior. She was staying out late frequently. She would claim it was work-related activity or girls' nights with friends from her team, but would come home smelling faintly like alcohol and perfume. She became protective of her phone in ways she'd never been before. She would keep it face down on tables, take it with her to the bathroom, and, at some point, change all her passwords so I couldn't access her devices, even casually, like I'd always been able to before. Our physical relationship had already declined, but now it stopped altogether. She'd claim exhaustion or stress and would physically pull away when I'd try to initiate any affection. The emotional distance became a chasm. We'd go days barely speaking beyond logistics about our son's schedule. I tried confronting her one evening. Asked gently if something was going on beyond the financial situation we found ourselves in, whether there was someone else. Christine's response was immediate defensiveness. Accused me of being insecure. Said my unemployment had made me jealous of her having a social life, and turned the whole conversation back on my inadequacies, rather than addressing my concerns. I didn't have any proof, just suspicions and gut feelings. So I backed down, hoping I was wrong. But the patterns continued. The late nights, the phone secrecy, the complete emotional withdrawal. By the time we reached the 2-year mark after my job loss, our marriage was essentially over in everything but legal status. We were roommates co-parenting our son, but had no romantic or emotional connection. Christine was cold and distant. She does what she wants, when she wants it. I was depressed and defeated. Our son, who was 12 by then, clearly sensed the tension, even though we tried to hide it. Christmas approached. I hoped the holiday might bring some warmth back, some reminder of the family we'd been before everything fell apart. Instead, Christmas became the day our marriage officially ended. On Christmas morning, our son opened his presents. We'd managed to get him what he wanted despite our reduced finances. He was happy, which was the main thing. After the boy went to his room to play with his new gaming console, Christine handed me an envelope. Said it was my Christmas present. I opened it not knowing what to expect, a gift card or a symbolic gesture. Inside were divorce papers, already filled out with both our names, filed with the court, just needing my signature. I stared at them, feeling numb, then managed to ask what this was. Christine said simply that she couldn't do this anymore, that our marriage was over, that she'd already consulted an attorney and filed, and she wants to move forward with the divorce immediately. No emotion in her voice, just matter-of-fact delivery like she was discussing a business transaction. I asked if we could talk about this. Suppose there was any chance of counseling or trying to fix things. She said no. Her mind was made up. She'd already told her family, who fully supported her decision. That detail struck me. She discussed divorcing me with her family before telling me, had built her support system and prepared for this moment while I'd been completely unaware. The next few days were a blur. I moved through them in shock, trying to process that my marriage was ending and apparently had been ending for a while without my full awareness. I even contacted Christine's mother, and she made clear they supported her decision. They'd apparently seen me as dead weight for a long time. The man who'd lost his job and couldn't get back to his previous earning level. The burden Christine had been carrying. None of them acknowledged the decade I'd provided for their daughter and sister. The house I'd bought, the lifestyle I'd funded, the years of being the primary breadwinner. All of that was erased by 2 years of struggle. My son was devastated when I told him. He couldn't understand why his parents were splitting up. I tried to reassure him that we both loved him and this wasn't his fault. I contacted a divorce attorney the week after Christmas through a colleague's recommendation. Met with the attorney and explained the situation. The attorney asked if I was willing to fight. Said that if Christine had been unfaithful, that could affect custody and asset division. But we'd need evidence, not just suspicions. He recommended hiring a private investigator to document Christine's activities. It would be expensive, but potentially worth it if my suspicions were correct. I authorized the expense. I needed to know the truth and needed evidence if we were going to court. The investigator my attorney recommended was a woman. She started surveillance on Christine within days. The divorce process moved forward while the investigator gathered evidence. Christine and I were living in the same house, but barely interacting. Our child was caught in the middle, confused and upset by the tension. About 6 weeks after the investigator started surveillance, she contacted my attorney with her findings. The attorney called me into his office to review what she'd discovered. What the investigator had documented was worse than I'd suspected. Christine had been having multiple affairs over the past year and a half. The evidence included photos and video footage of her with 2 different men at places where she had no business being. One affair was with a coworker from her pharmaceutical company. They'd apparently been involved for over a year. Another was with a man from our social circle, someone Christine and I had socialized with as couples, along with his wife. A family friend who'd been sleeping with my wife while maintaining the friendship publicly. The attorney methodically reviewed everything with me and asked how I wanted to proceed. I told him to use everything. That Christine had betrayed our marriage and then filed for divorce while positioning herself as the victim. She wanted out. Fine. but she'd face full consequences for how she'd gotten here. The court date arrived about 4 months after Christine had filed. She walked into the courtroom with her attorney and several family members. Her parents and sister, all dressed nicely, all looking confident. They clearly expected this to be straightforward. Christine would get primary custody. I'd pay child support despite my lower income. We'd divide assets more or less evenly. And she'd walk away having escaped the burden of being married to an underemployed man. My attorney had other plans. He presented evidence of an affair while still married. The evidence was overwhelming and unambiguous. Christine had been conducting multiple affairs for a long while. My attorney also presented evidence of my consistent efforts to maintain stability for my son. Documentation that I'd been the involved parent, while Christine had been absent pursuing her affairs. The judge reviewed everything carefully, asked Christine's attorney if they had any counter to the evidence of infidelity. Her attorney tried arguing that my job loss had driven Christine to seek emotional support elsewhere, that the affairs were symptoms of marital breakdown I'd caused by failing to maintain our financial stability. My attorney countered that, regardless of marital problems, adultery was adultery. That Christine had chosen to betray her vows rather than seek counseling or honest communication. The judge's ruling came about a week later. I got primary custody of our son. Christine would have visitation rights, but the judge felt my boy's stability was best maintained by keeping him with me in our family home, especially given Christine's demonstrated priorities during the past year. Asset division would be equitable with consideration for my reduced income and need to maintain housing for our son. And the big one, spousal support. Given that Christine's income significantly exceeded mine and the marriage had lasted over 10 years, I was entitled to spousal support. The judge ordered Christine to pay me $1,000 per month for 2.5 years to help me reestablish financial stability. The amount wasn't arbitrary. It was based on the income disparity between us and the standard of living we'd maintained when I was employed at my previous level of pay. The courtroom was silent as the judge delivered the ruling. Christine's face went from confident to shocked to furious. Her family members looked stunned. They'd come expecting to witness my humiliation. Instead, they'd watched Christine's affairs get exposed and her order to pay support to the husband they'd mocked as a failure. Christine tried to argue immediately, started saying the ruling was unfair, that she shouldn't have to pay me anything, that the judge was biased. Her attorney shut her down quickly, pointed out that arguing with the judge wasn't going to help. The ruling was finalized shortly after. The divorce was granted, a custody arrangement established, and support payments ordered. Christine filed an appeal, claiming emotional distress and bias. Her attorney argued that the judge had been prejudiced against her because of the affair evidence. The appeal failed. The evidence was too clear, the ruling too well supported by both the facts and the law. Christine's affairs were documented beyond dispute. My lower income and role as primary parent were established facts. The original ruling stood. I moved forward with my life focused on two things, my boy and my career. My son adjusted to the new custody arrangement better than I'd expected. Having stability and consistent parenting helped. I made sure he saw Christine regularly during her visitation times, never spoke negatively about her in front of him, and tried to minimize the damage from our divorce. Focused on advancing my career. The job I'd taken wasn't ideal, but it was a foundation. I worked hard, took on additional projects, and networked within the company. Got promoted after 18 months to a position with better pay. Not back to my previous level yet, but moving in the right direction. The spousal support payments from Christine helped significantly. $1,000 a month gave me breathing room to rebuild savings, maintain the house, and provide well for our son. Reduced the financial stress that had been crushing me for years. Christine hated every payment. Would send them late sometimes. Would include bitter notes about how unfair this was. After about 6 months of support payments, she called me directly. Tried guilting me into not accepting the money. Said I should be working harder to earn more. so I wouldn't need her support, called me pathetic for living off my ex-wife. I listened without engaging emotionally, recognized the manipulation attempt immediately. I told her calmly one day that she'd filed for divorce during my period of financial difficulty, that the spousal support was legally ordered based on our income disparity and the circumstances she'd created by choosing affairs over marriage, that I'd be accepting every payment as ordered without guilt. She tried arguing, said I was being vindictive, that I was punishing her financially. I pointed out that this wasn't punishment, it was a legal consequence of her choices. She hung up on me, kept making payments though, didn't have a choice. By the time the 2.5-year support period was approaching its end, my career had progressed significantly. I'd been promoted twice more. The financial stability was rebuilt. I didn't need the support anymore practically, but accepted it for the whole period as ordered. I saved most of it in those final years, building a solid cushion for our son's future college expenses. When the support payments finally ended, Christine sent one last bitter message about how I'd taken advantage of her for years. I didn't respond. I didn't block her number for essential co-parenting communication. She's moved on with her life. Still works at the same pharmaceutical company. We maintain polite but distant communication as co-parents. Only discuss our son's needs and schedules. No personal conversation beyond basic courtesy. Looking back now, 5 years after Christine handed me divorce papers on Christmas morning, I understand everything more clearly. I learned that people's true character emerges during adversity. When I lost my job, Christine could have been the partner she'd vowed to be. Instead, she became resentful and ultimately betrayed the marriage rather than weathering a difficult period together. I learned that recovery is possible even when everything falls apart. I'd lost my job, my marriage, my financial security, and my sense of self-worth simultaneously. But I rebuilt methodically, finding new employment, being present for our son, and maintaining dignity through the divorce process. I learned that fighting strategically is more effective than fighting emotionally. I'd wanted to rage at Christine when I discovered her affairs. Instead, my attorney and I built an evidence-based case that led to outcomes that reflected the reality of what had happened. I learned that spousal support exists for legitimate reasons. The social stigma around men receiving support from ex-wives is strong. But the law recognized that I'd been the primary earner for most of our marriage, had lost employment through no fault of my own, and deserved transitional support while rebuilding. Most importantly, I learned that staying calm and focused during a crisis is the best revenge. Christine and her family expected me to fall apart. Expected the divorce to crush me. Expected I'd struggle forever as a failed man who couldn't keep his career going. Instead, I maintained composure, focused on my son and my career, accepted the support without shame, rebuilt my life. My calm response throughout became its own form of justice. Some people still judge me for accepting spousal support from Christine. Think a man should never take money from his ex-wife, regardless of circumstances, that I should have refused on principle. But those people don't understand how marriage law works or why it exists. The support wasn't charity. I have no shame about accepting what I was legally entitled to receive. Christine wanted to walk away from our marriage, portraying herself as the victim of an underemployed husband. Wanted to be celebrated for finally escaping the burden I represented. Instead, the truth came out. Her affairs were exposed. She ended up paying support to the husband she tried to abandon. Not because I manipulated anything, simply because consequences followed actions. She'd chosen affairs over communication, betrayal over partnership, filing for divorce on Christmas Day over maintaining her marriage. And she'd face the full legal consequences of those choices. My son will leave for college in a couple of years. When he does, I'll have successfully raised a good young man through difficult circumstances. Christine will be part of his life always as his mother. That's appropriate, and I've never interfered with their relationship. But she's not part of mine anymore beyond necessary co-parenting coordination. She chose to leave during the worst period of my life, thinking she was escaping a burden. That period is over now. And I'm living proof that losing everything doesn't mean staying lost. Just means you have to rebuild carefully, strategically, with focus on what actually matters. The best revenge isn't getting even. It's building something better than what you lost. That's what I've done. What I'm still doing. And no amount of bitter messages from Christine can change the fact that I'm the one who came out of this divorce stronger. That's my story. That's my truth. And I'm at peace with all of it.